Cody Brown just said the quiet part out loud, and the internet is absolutely losing it. In the latest episode of Sister Wives, the father of 18 dropped a bombshell so shocking that viewers had to pause, rewind, and ask themselves if he actually just said what they think he said. Spoiler alert, he did, and it's worse than you could possibly imagine. While discussing his daughter Aurora's new relationship, Cody decided to give some unsolicited advice about keeping things pure before marriage. Noble enough, right? Wrong. Because what came out of his mouth next has become the most talked about moment of the entire season, and honestly, it might just be the most humiliating confession in Sister Wives history. Cody admitted on camera, for the world to hear, that the only reason he was able to keep his hands off Robyn before they got married was because he had what he called an outlet. And that outlet? His 3 other wives. Yes, you read that correctly. Cody essentially confessed that while he was building romantic feelings for Robyn, courting her, falling head over heels, he was going home to Christine, Janelle, and Meri to satisfy his physical needs. The audacity, the disrespect, the sheer lack of self-awareness. Fans are calling it degrading, dehumanizing, and downright disgusting. Social media erupted within hours of the episode airing, with viewers expressing their shock and disgust at how casually Cody reduced his wives to nothing more than convenient outlets for his desires. These weren't just women he was married to, these were mothers of his children, partners who had devoted decades of their lives to him, women who deserved respect and dignity. But that's not even the worst part, because this wasn't just a slip of the tongue or a poorly worded sentence. Cody doubled down, explaining in detail how he managed to control himself around Robyn by essentially using his other marriages as a release valve. The room went silent. Aurora looked mortified. Robyn tried desperately to smooth things over. And viewers at home, they couldn't believe what they were witnessing. This episode was supposed to be about holiday traditions and Aurora introducing her cowboy boyfriend to the family. It should have been sweet, wholesome, maybe a little awkward in that typical meeting the parents kind of way. Instead, it turned into a masterclass in narcissism, with Cody making everything about himself and Robyn, delivering cringeworthy lectures and ultimately revealing just how little he valued the women who stood by him for years. And here's the thing, this is just the beginning, because what unfolded in that garage conversation, the bizarre lectures, the uncomfortable comparisons, the desperate need for attention, it all builds to that one devastating moment where Cody exposes exactly who he really is. So buckle up, because we're about to break down every painful, humiliating second of Cody Brown's latest meltdown. Let's rewind to where this train wreck actually started. Aurora Brown, 22 years old and Cody and Robyn's daughter, has a boyfriend. His name is Brody, and he's a full-blown cowboy, complete with the hat, the boots, and apparently an actual ranch. Sweet, right? A young woman excited to introduce the man she's dating to her parents. What could possibly go wrong? Everything. Literally everything. The scene opens with Aurora asking her parents to go stand in the garage and pretend they're putting something away. Already, you can feel the awkwardness. This is a 22-year-old woman who has to stage manage a conversation with her own parents because she knows deep down that this is going to be uncomfortable. And she was absolutely right. Cody and Robyn shuffle into the garage, playing along with this bizarre setup, and Aurora drops the news. She's official with Brody, they're together. She's happy. This should be a moment where parents smile, ask a few questions, maybe express some excitement for their daughter, but Cody had other plans. Within seconds, he made it crystal clear that this conversation wasn't going to be about Aurora at all. It was going to be about him, about his relationship with Robyn, about his feelings, his romance, his need to be the center of attention, even during his daughter's big moment. Robyn tried to justify it later, calling Cody a romantic, saying he just gets excited when he sees love and wants to celebrate it. But let's be real, that's not what happened. What happened was a textbook display of narcissistic behavior, where a parent hijacks their child's moment to make it all about themselves. Every time Brody said something sweet about Aurora, Cody felt compelled to one-up him, talking about how he treats Robyn, how romantic their relationship is, how special their connection is. At one point, after Brody made a kind comment, Cody literally walked over to Robyn and kissed her, as if he needed to prove something to this young man who was just trying to have a normal conversation. Aurora's face said it all. She looked uncomfortable, embarrassed, frustrated. This was supposed to be her moment, her introduction, her chance to share something important with her parents. Instead, she became a background character in the Cody and Robyn show, which, let's be honest, is a show nobody asked for and nobody wants to watch. But Cody wasn't done, not even close, because after making the entire conversation about himself, he decided it was time to put on his protective father hat and grill poor Brody with questions that would make anyone squirm. And that's when things went from awkward to absolutely unbearable. Viewers watching at home were pausing, rewinding, looking at each other in disbelief. Even Robyn's face showed cracks of concern turn like she knew her husband was about to say something he shouldn't. And boy, was she right. What came next would spark debates, outrage, and thousands of comments calling out Kody's behavior for what it truly was. So Brody, sweet cowboy Brody, is standing in this garage trying his best to make a good impression, and Kody, playing the role of protective father, asks him a seemingly normal question. Will you protect Aurora? Simple enough. Brody's answer was perfect. He told Kody that on their very first date, he gave Aurora a knife. Classic cowboy move. He assured Kody that yes, absolutely, he would protect her. But that wasn't good enough for Kody. Oh no, because Kody needed to take it further, needed to make it weird, needed to turn a straightforward question into something deeply uncomfortable. Kody looked at this young man and asked, "So you'll protect her from yourself?" The confusion on Brody's face was immediate. You could see him processing the question, trying to understand what Kody was implying. Why would he need to protect Aurora from himself? What kind of question even is that? And that's when it became painfully clear Kody wasn't asking about physical protection at all. He was diving headfirst into a lecture about chastity, purity, and keeping hands to yourself before marriage. Aurora tried to redirect, explaining that Brody was thinking tactically, talking about actual protection, not catching on to the religious undertones Kody was throwing around. But Kody kept pushing, kept hinting, kept making everyone in that garage wish they were anywhere else. This is where Kody's upbringing and fundamentalist religious culture came pouring out. The idea that young men are predators who can't control themselves, the notion that women are possessions to be protected and preserved, the obsession with purity, and the fear that any physical affection before marriage is some kind of moral failure. Brody, bless him, was not picking up what Kody was putting down. And honestly, that's probably because Brody is a good kid who wasn't raised to think of his girlfriend as someone he needs to protect from his own desires. He was genuinely confused, innocently trying to understand why this man was implying he might hurt Aurora. But Kody didn't stop there. He kept rambling about protecting Aurora, about keeping things pure, about making sure Brody understood the rules. Robyn jumped in at some point, trying to smooth over the awkwardness, explaining that this is just how Kody was raised, this is their culture, this is what they believe. Except here's the problem. Kody's beliefs are drenched in hypocrisy. Because while he's standing there lecturing a 22-year-old about keeping his hands to himself, Kody's own history tells a very different story. A story that involves kissing Robyn before they were married, while he was still sealed to 3 other women. A story that, according to his own religious standards, makes him guilty of the exact thing he's warning Brody against. And if you think that's hypocritical, just wait. Because Kody was about to say something so bizarre, so out of touch, so incredibly tone-deaf, that it would overshadow everything else in this entire episode. Kody's lecture continued, and that's when he dropped one of the most bizarre lines of the entire conversation. He told Brody, "You're kissing another man's wife. Don't take something that doesn't belong to you." Let that sink in for a second. Cody Brown, the man who built his entire adult life around polygamy, the man who married 4 women, the man who kissed Robyn while still married to Christine, Janelle, and Meri, just told a young man that kissing his girlfriend before marriage is the same as kissing another man's wife. The mental gymnastics required to make that statement is truly Olympic level. According to fundamentalist polygamist beliefs, when you kiss someone before marriage, you're essentially taking intimacy that belongs to their future spouse. It's a concept rooted in purity culture, where women are seen as property that gets transferred from father to husband. And Kody, despite having left the strict fundamentalist church he was raised in, clearly still carries these beliefs deep in his core. But here's where it gets really rich. Kody and Robyn kissed before they were married. This is confirmed. When they got engaged, they shared a kiss, and it was treated as this big, scandalous moment within the family. Because by their own religious standards, Kody was already sealed to 3 other women. So when he kissed Robyn, he was literally kissing another man's wife, or in this case, kissing a woman who belonged to the collective marriage he already had. Yet somehow, Kody conveniently forgets this when he's standing in the garage giving Brody the 3rd degree. Aurora looked mortified. Brody looked confused. Robyn tried to play it off as cultural differences, and viewers at home were screaming at their screens, pointing out the glaring double standard. Kody also made a point of saying he's more discriminating with Aurora's boyfriend than he was with his other kids' partners. Why? Because he's been through divorce now, because he's learned lessons, because apparently the pain of losing Christine, Janelle, and Meri has made him more protective of Aurora than he ever was of his other daughters. That statement alone is incredibly telling. It suggests that Kody cares more about Aurora's safety and happiness than he did about his other children's. It implies that his other kids didn't get the same level of scrutiny, the same level of protection, and knowing what what we know about how Kody treated Christine's kids, Janelle's kids, and even Meri's daughter, that statement feels less like growth and more like favoritism. But wait. Because earlier in the episode, Kody said something completely different. He claimed that Robyn was the discriminating one, that she was the one being cautious about Aurora's boyfriend, while he just wanted to be friends with Brody, hang out, tell stories, get to know him casually. So which is it, Kody? Are you the laid-back dad who just wants to be buddies? Or are you the hyper-vigilant, overly protective father who's learned from past mistakes? Because you can't be both. And then it happened. The moment that would define this entire episode. The moment that sent shockwaves through the Sister Wives fandom and had social media exploding with outrage. Kody, in his infinite wisdom, decided to share exactly how he managed to keep things pure with Robyn before they got married. He said, and we quote, "I kept my hands off of Robyn until we were married. I mean, I did have an outlet I was still loving with my other wives." There it is, the single most degrading, disrespectful, dehumanizing statement Cody Brown has ever made on camera. And considering his track record, that's saying something. Let's break down exactly what Kody just admitted. He's confessing that while he was courting Robyn, falling in love with Robyn, building this grand romantic connection with Robyn, he was going home to Christine, Janelle, and Meri and using them for physical satisfaction. They weren't partners in those moments. They weren't wives he loved and cherished. They were outlets, convenient bodies to fulfill his needs while he kept his precious Robyn on a pedestal. The implications are absolutely sickening. Kody reduced 3 women, mothers of his children, women who had given him decades of their lives, to nothing more than tools for his own gratification. He admitted, out loud, that he viewed intimacy with them as a means to an end, a way to control himself around the woman he really wanted. And he said this on national television, in front of his daughter, in front of Robyn, in front of millions of viewers, without a single ounce of shame or self-awareness. The silence in that garage was deafening. Aurora looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. Robyn's face flickered with something. Was it embarrassment? Realization? Damage control mode activating? Brody just stood there, probably wondering what kind of family he was getting involved with. But Kody seemed genuinely proud of himself, like he'd just shared some profound wisdom about restraint and purity, like he'd proven what a good moral man he was for keeping his hands off Robyn, completely oblivious to the fact that he'd just exposed himself as someone who viewed his wives as interchangeable objects. Viewers immediately took to social media, expressing their horror and disgust. Comments flooded in, calling out the misogyny, the objectification, the sheer audacity of making such a statement. People pointed out that this explains so much about why Christine, Janelle, and Meri all eventually left. Because how do you stay with a man who sees you as nothing more than an outlet? And here's the thing that makes it even worse. Kody has spent years, literal years, playing the victim, crying about how his wives abandoned him, claiming he doesn't understand why they left, acting like he did everything right and they just couldn't handle plural marriage. But this one statement reveals the truth. They left because he never truly valued them. He never saw them as equal partners. He saw them as placeholders until something better came along. After Kody's bombshell confession dropped like a grenade in that garage, Robyn tried to do what Robyn does best: damage control. She jumped in, attempting to salvage the situation, trying to reframe her husband's horrifying statement into something romantic and endearing. According to Robyn, Kody is just a romantic at heart. He sees love and romance, and he wants to celebrate it. He gets excited when he witnesses affection, and he can't help but want to participate. She painted him as this hopeless romantic who just loves love so much that he has to make everything about his own relationship. But let's call it what it really is. That's not romance, that's narcissism. A truly romantic person would be thrilled for their daughter. They'd ask thoughtful questions about how the relationship started, what they enjoy doing together, what makes this person special. They'd focus on their child's happiness, not their own need for validation and attention. What Kody did in that garage wasn't romantic, it was selfish. It was making his daughter's moment about himself. It was using Aurora's relationship as an excuse to flaunt his connection with Robyn and remind everyone in the room, including a bewildered 22-year-old cowboy, that he still got it. And Robyn's defense of this behavior is almost as concerning as the behavior itself, because by justifying it by calling it romantic instead of calling it out for what it is, she's enabling Kody's narcissistic tendencies. She's giving him permission to continue making everything about himself, to continue continue bulldozing over other people's moments, to continue being the center of attention at all times. You could see it in everyone's faces. Aurora wasn't smiling. She wasn't glowing with happiness the way a young woman should be when introducing her boyfriend to her parents. She looked uncomfortable, resigned, like she knew this was how it was going to go, like she'd seen this pattern her entire life and had learned to just accept it. Brody, bless his heart, was trying so hard to navigate the situation. He answered questions respectfully, shared sweet stories about his relationship with Aurora, and did everything a good boyfriend should do when meeting the parents. But every time he said something kind or thoughtful, Kody found a way to turn it back to himself and Robyn. Even the editing couldn't hide the tension. There were long pauses, awkward glances, moments where you could practically hear the producers behind the camera cringing. Multiple times throughout the conversation, you could tell people wanted to say, "Kody, please stop. Please just stop talking." But he didn't stop. He kept going, kept lecturing, kept comparing, kept making it weird. And Robyn kept trying to smooth it over, kept making excuses, kept pretending that this was normal father behavior instead of the red flag parade. It actually was. And while Robyn was busy defending Kody's romantic nature, the rest of the world was watching and thinking about three other women. Three women who spent years dealing with this exact behavior. Three women who were made to feel invisible while Kody elevated Robyn above them. Three women who finally had enough. Imagine being Christine, Janelle, or Meri, sitting at home watching this episode unfold. Imagine hearing your ex-husband, the father of your children, the man you spent decades with, casually admit on national television that you were nothing more than an outlet for his physical needs while he cultivated real romance with someone else. The betrayal, the humiliation, the validation of every painful feeling they must have experienced during those years. Christine has been the most vocal about her experience in the family. She's written a book, given interviews, and made it clear that she felt undervalued and disrespected for years. But even she might not have realized the full extent of how Kody viewed her until this moment. Hearing him say out loud that he used her and the other wives as outlets while keeping Robyn special and separate, that's a level of disrespect that's hard to put into words. Janelle, who always prided herself on being practical and logical, who tried to make plural marriage work despite the obvious inequality, must be watching this and feeling vindicated in her decision to leave. Because how do you stay with someone who reduces you to a tool? Someone who sees intimacy with you as a way to manage his feelings for another woman? And Meri, poor Meri, who clung to the marriage for so long, who tried desperately to fix things, to be valued, to matter to Kody again. She gave up her bed and breakfast schedule, rearranged her entire life, hoping for scraps of attention from a man who clearly never saw her as anything more than convenient. This outlet comment explains so much about the family dynamics we've watched crumble over the past few seasons. It explains why Robyn was always treated differently. It explains why the other wives felt like second-class citizens in their own marriages. It explains the resentment, the hurt, the eventual exodus of three women who finally realized they deserved better. Because here's what Kody doesn't seem to understand. When you truly love someone, when you truly value them as a partner, you don't view intimacy with them as an outlet. You don't use them as a placeholder or a distraction. You don't treat them like they're interchangeable with anyone else. But that's exactly what Kody did. And by admitting it so casually, without shame or awareness, he revealed the fundamental problem with his approach to plural marriage. He never saw his wives as equals. He ranked them. He played favorites. He gave Robyn the romance, the pedestal, the special treatment, while Christine, Janelle, and Meri got whatever was left over. And now the world knows it. Now there's no denying it, no spinning it, no pretending that the family fell apart because the wives couldn't handle sharing, or because they were jealous, or because they didn't understand plural marriage. The family fell apart because Cody Brown never truly respected the women he married. He used them, took from them, and when they finally had enough and left, he painted himself as the victim. Well, the mask is off now, and there's no putting it back on, but the contradictions didn't stop with the outlet comment. Because throughout this entire garage conversation, Kody kept flip-flopping between two completely different versions of himself, and apparently he thought no one would notice. Early in the episode, Kody made a point of saying that Robyn was way more discriminating than him when it came to Aurora's boyfriend. He painted himself as the easygoing dad, the guy who just wanted to hang out with Brody, tell some stories, maybe go horseback riding, or sit around a campfire. Just two guys bonding, no pressure, no judgment. He was the cool dad. Robyn was the protective one. Fast forward to the garage conversation, and suddenly Kody's singing a completely different tune. Now he's claiming that he's more discriminating with Aurora's boyfriend than he ever was with his other kids' partner. partners. Why? Because he's been through divorce now. Because he's learned hard lessons. Because apparently heartbreak has turned him into this hyper-vigilant protector who's going to grill every potential suitor to make sure they're worthy. So which is it, Kody? Are you the laid-back, friendly dad who just wants to get to know the guy? Or are you the strict, judgmental father who's putting Brody through some kind of worthiness test? Because those are two entirely different approaches, and you can't claim to be both in the same conversation. What makes this even more infuriating is what the discrimination comment implies. Kody straight up admitted that he's being harder on Aurora's boyfriend than he was on the partners his other children brought home. He's being more protective of Aurora than he was of Christine's daughters, Janelle's daughters, or Meri's daughter. That's not growth. That's favoritism. That's proving, once again, that Robyn's children get special treatment while the others get whatever scraps of attention Kody feels like giving. And here's the kicker. Kody tried to justify this by saying he's learned from his divorces. But what exactly has he learned? Because from where we're sitting, it looks like he's learned absolutely nothing. He's still making everything about himself. He's still playing favorites. He's still saying wildly inappropriate things without any self-awareness. He's still treating people like objects to be used and discarded when they're no longer convenient. If anything, the divorces should have taught him humility. They should have taught him to listen, to value people, to recognize his own failings. Instead, he's using them as an excuse to be even more controlling with the children he actually cares about, while completely ignoring the pain he caused the others. Brody stood there taking it all in, probably realizing that he just stepped into a family dynamic that's far more complicated and dysfunctional than he ever imagined. Aurora looked defeated, like she knew her father was going to embarrass her, but hoped maybe this time would be different. And Robyn just kept trying to smooth everything over, playing the role of supportive wife, while her husband unraveled right in front of everyone. But the real question everyone's asking is, does Kody even hear himself? Does he listen to the words coming out of his mouth and recognize the contradictions? The bigger question looming over all of this is simple. Why does any of this matter? Why should we care about Cody Brown's latest embarrassing moment when he's given us so many over the years? Because this isn't just about one cringy conversation in a garage. This is about a pattern of behavior that's destroyed a family, hurt countless people, and continues to play out on national television. This is about a man who refuses to take accountability, refuses to grow, refuses to see anyone's perspective but his own. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Later in the season, previews show that Kody and Robyn receive a message from a woman who's interested in joining their family. That's right. After everything that's happened, after 3 wives have left, after years of claiming he's done with plural marriage and only wants to be with Robyn, suddenly there's talk of bringing another woman into the picture. And Kody's the one bringing it up. The same man who declared he was monogamous now. The same man who said he was done with polygamy. The same man who claimed Robyn was all he needed. Suddenly, he's entertaining the idea of adding another wife. Why? What's changed? Or better yet, what's the real motivation here? Insiders speculate that Kody's ego took a massive hit when Christine, Janelle, and Meri left. His identity was wrapped up in being this patriarch with multiple wives, this man who was so desirable that women competed for his attention. When that fell apart, when the wives chose themselves over him, it shattered his self-image. So now, bringing in another wife isn't about love or spiritual conviction. It's about proving to himself and to the world that he's still got it, that women still want him, that he's still the prize everyone's fighting for. And Robyn, well, Robyn's in an impossible position. She spent years being the favorite wife, the special one, the woman Kody chose above all others. But now, if another woman enters the picture, she risks losing that status. She risks becoming just another wife, no longer elevated, no longer protected from the pain that Christine, Janelle, and Meri experienced for decades. The irony is almost poetic. Robyn could end up exactly where the other wives were, feeling secondary, feeling like an outlet, while Kody pursues someone new with all the passion and attention he once gave her. But here's what makes this entire situation so disturbing. Kody hasn't learned anything. He hasn't grown. He hasn't reflected on why 3 women left him. He hasn't examined his behavior, his words, his treatment of the people he claims to love. Instead, he's doubling down, making more excuses, blaming everyone but himself. And apparently, he's ready to drag another woman into this dysfunction, to repeat the same patterns, the same favoritism, the same emotional manipulation that destroyed his family the first time around. The question isn't whether Kody will bring another wife into the family. The question is, what woman in her right mind would willingly sign up for this disaster after watching everything that's played out on television? So where does this leave us? With a man who's completely unraveling on national television, seemingly unaware of how badly he's exposing himself with every word that comes out of his mouth. The outlet comment will go down in Sister Wives history as one of the most shocking, tone-deaf, and revealing moments Kody has ever given us. And that's saying something, considering we've watched this man for over a decade making one questionable decision after another. But what makes this particular moment so significant is that it confirms what many viewers have suspected for years. Kody never truly valued his plural marriage. He never saw Christine, Janelle, and Meri as equal partners deserving of the same love, respect, and romance he showered on Robyn. They were conveniences, they were outlets, they were there to serve a purpose, and when they stopped serving that purpose, he had no use for them anymore. And now his children are watching this. Logan, Madison, Gwendolyn, all of Kody's kids from his other marriages are seeing their father admit on camera that he used their mothers, that he didn't value them, that they were never truly cherished the way Robyn was. How do you come back from that? How do you repair relationships with your children after publicly humiliating their mothers in such a devastating way? The answer is you probably don't. And judging by how many of Kody's older children have distanced themselves from him, it seems they've already made their choice. Meanwhile, Aurora is left navigating her own relationship, introducing her boyfriend to a father who made the entire experience about himself, who gave inappropriate lectures, who compared everything to his own marriage, and who ultimately showed Brody exactly what kind of man he is. The fact that this is only halfway through the season means we're in for even more drama, more contradictions, more moments where Kody says something so outrageous that viewers have to pause and rewind just to make sure they heard correctly. The polygamy conversation that's coming, the potential new wife, the inevitable fallout when Robyn realizes she might not be the favorite anymore, it's all brewing and it's going to be messy. But at the end of the day, this episode wasn't really about Aurora's boyfriend or holiday traditions or any of the surface-level storylines the show tried to sell us. This episode was about exposing who Cody Brown really is, a narcissist who can't let anyone else have the spotlight. A man who views relationships as transactions. Someone so deeply insecure that he needs constant validation, constant attention, constant proof that he's desired and important. And the saddest part? He doesn't even see it. He genuinely believes he's the victim in all of this. He genuinely thinks he did nothing wrong. He genuinely cannot understand why his wives left, why his children are distant, why the world is watching him with a mixture of shock and disgust. So here's the real question for you. Do you think Kody will ever take accountability for his actions? Will he ever recognize the pain he's caused? Or is he too far gone, too wrapped up in his own narrative to ever see the truth? Drop your thoughts below, like, subscribe, and stay tuned, because the next video is waiting, and you won't believe what's coming next.